Listen for these vocabulary words as I read the lesson.
Civilization, bronze, and malleable.
Think about this question while you watch the video.
Discovering Catal Huyuk. In 1961, British archaeologist James Mellart looked in awe across the dusty Konya Plain in Turkey. In front of him, buried under 2 mounds of sand, lay the discovery of a lifetime, the remains of Catal Huyuk, one of the world's first cities. Since Mellart's original discovery, archaeologists have been working to uncover and preserve the history of the people of Catal Huyuk. From studying the remains of Catal Huyuk, archaeologists have learned much about the ways in which agriculture led to the development of permanent villages, cities, and entire civilizations. A civilization is a culture that has developed complex systems of religion, learning, arts, and government. Scientists and historians are still searching the ruins of Catal Huyuk to find out more about these first farmers and city dwellers. A new city. About 9,000 years ago, the world's largest towns rarely had more than 10 buildings and housed no more than a few hundred people. The Neolithic farming village of Jericho, for example, was probably never home to more than 900 people at a time. This was not true for Catal Huyuk. It is believed that more than 6,000 people living in more than 1,000 buildings called this grand city home. What a grand city it was! Covering more than 32 acres, an area the size of 23 football fields, the city resembled a large apartment complex. The houses, made from mud bricks, reeds, and plaster, were joined together and faced a courtyard. There were no streets to separate the dwellings, and they had no doors. This may have been to protect the city from attacks. People entered their houses through holes in the flat roofs, which were reached by ladders. Permanent houses. Houses in Catal Huyuk were very different from houses in other places in the world at that time. In most places, people still lived in temporary shelters made of stone, wood, animal skins, and bone. In Catal Huyuk, each family lived in an almost identical 2-room unit. The main room in each house was divided into a kitchen and living area. Here, a fireplace and an oven were used for heating and cooking. The room also had a storage bin for fuel. Reed-covered platforms built into the walls were used for sleeping and sitting. Under the platforms were tombs that held the bones of family members. Many houses had plaster walls painted with religious decorations, animals, and plants. This suggests that the people of Catal Huyuk greatly valued their crops and animals because they were so important for survival. Civilization in Catal Huyuk. Living together in one place allowed the people of Catal Huyuk to develop a more complex culture or civilization. In Catal Huyuk, permanent housing led to a large population and better farming practices. Farmers were able to provide food for all of the people of the city. In each house, a storage room filled with clay pots overflowed with wheat, barley, peas, almonds, acorns, and apples. In addition, cattle provided a steady supply of meat and milk for families. Surrounding the city itself may have been outdoor courtyards, tent bazaars, corrals to hold livestock, open fields, places to hold carnivals, and craft shops. Religion. In Catal Huyuk, the development of improved agricultural techniques led to the development of a religion based on worship of a goddess. The people of Catal Huyuk believed that she controlled birth and death and ruled over heaven, earth, and the underworld. Of the buildings that have been excavated in Catal Huyuk, many were temples. No rooms in the city had more decoration than these. As in homes, the walls of the temples were painted, but with more detail. Often the paintings dealt with themes of life and death. Large sculptures, including a mother goddess image, were placed around the rooms. Products and trade. Archaeological findings show that Catal Huyuk had a number of skilled craft workers. They made fine clay pots, woven clothing, and jewelry. Some of these products were the first of their kind in the world. Many of the products made came from raw materials found in or near the city. In the mountains beyond the city, people collected obsidian. They also used wool from domesticated sheep to make cloth. People twisted the wool into thread. Then they placed the thread onto wooden looms and wove it into cloth. Trade partners. Products were also made from raw materials that came from trade with other places. The variety and quality of goods made in Catal Huyuk attracted trade partners from other areas. The city was probably an important trade center. Archaeologists believe this because they have found the remains of goods from other places there. Pieces of pottery from Syria, shells from the Red Sea, and wood from oak forests miles away have all been uncovered in Catal Huyuk. Archaeologists have also found the city's obsidian goods in ancient settlements as far away as modern Syria. Metalwork. When craft workers first saw copper, they were probably unsure about how to work with it. Copper is a flexible, reddish-brown metal. As they experimented, craft workers in Catal Huyuk found that if they made fires hot enough, they could soften the copper ore. Once the copper was softened, they could shape it into beads, rings, or pins. Copper probably first came into use by the Sumerians between 5,000 and 6,000 years ago. The Sumerians beat thin copper sheets and shaped designs, such as this bowl, onto a wooden background. Bronze, formed from mixing tin with copper, first came into use around 3,300 BC. Most early bronze objects are tools or weapons, with a few sculptures such as this bronze chariot. The Bronze Age. Like the people of Catal Huyuk, people in other places around the world experimented with copper ore as well as iron ore, tin, and gold. In Mesopotamia, within the region that is today known as the Middle East, Sumerian craft workers were among the first to mix copper and tin together to create bronze. Bronze was much stronger than gold, tin, or copper, but it was still malleable, or soft enough to be bent, shaped, and worked. From bronze, people made pots and pans, which changed the way food was cooked and stored. In places such as the Mediterranean island of Crete, people used bronze to make statues. Tools and weapons forged from bronze were stronger and more efficient than those made earlier. These stronger tools changed the way people farmed as well as the way they fought battles. Civilization was moving into the period known as the Bronze Age. Here's what you learned today. First, the remarkable discovery of Catal Huyuk has helped historians to understand the development of civilization. Next, The people of Catal Huyuk adapted to their environment and created a civilization using resources around them. And finally, Catal Huyuk was home to many craft workers who made goods from raw materials. These crafts were then traded with peoples around them.